The biggest story I covered at the Star-Telegram, I became the first reporter from a Texas newspaper to go to Vietnam. I worked first as the police reporter, then I became the courthouse reporter. But in 1965, the war was becoming the big story. And I was just determined that I was going to get there and cover it. And so I asked the paper, and they had never sent a reporter overseas since World War II. And finally, I think in a way I sort of shamed them into doing it. I kept bugging the editor about different ways we could do it. I offered to cover it as a freelancer, so much a word. And finally, I went to him one day and said, look, if I quit and get to Vietnam on my own, will you hire me once I get there? And so we went back and forth, and finally they decided to send me over there. So I became the first reporter from a Texas newspaper to go to Vietnam. That was in 1965. Well, because it was just such a big story. I just wanted to see what was there. And the other part was I was very much a hawk. I mean, you know, by that time, Lyndon Johnson was our president. He was Texas's president. You know, when Lyndon Johnson said something, we all took that to be the truth. And so I got there. I was there about 6 weeks. After I got there, I had a kind of a change of mind. I was with a group of U.S. Marines, and we were going across a field, and we were told there were Viet Cong in the tree line there. And there was a Vietnamese platoon that was going with us, and they refused to go. And they just sat down, and they wouldn't cross that field with us. And I sort of, it came to me then that you can help people do things, but you can't do it for them. And if they don't want to do it, it's very difficult for you to help them in any way. And I really kind of began to have second thoughts about whether we should have been involved in Vietnam. It's very anecdotal, but I guess most things that make an impression on us are anecdotal. I was very jingoistic in the beginning when I got there. I mean, basically I was writing features about kids from Fort Worth. And their parents and wives and mothers would write me letters and tell me where they were. And I would just line these letters up, and I'd go out and find them. It's the single most rewarding thing I ever did in all my years in journalism, because people were so glad to see me. You know, it just would brighten up their day that someone from their hometown would look them up. And I never forget, once I was out, I had a letter from a mother and asked me to go see her son. And I found him, and it was some out godforsaken place, and they'd never seen any reporters there. And I walked up to this kid, and he had on his helmet and his body armor. He had his weapon with him. He had his ammo belt on. And I said, I'm Bob Schieffer from the Star-Telegram. Your mom asked me to come see how you were doing. And the kid just broke into tears. This is this tough U.S. Marine. And he was a kid, you know. And it was very, very rewarding. To be able to, you know, bring a little happiness to those kids at that time. When I came back, I was convinced that the war, for whatever our good intentions, simply could not be won. And I suppose that was reflected in my writing. This was the turning point in my career professionally, as it were, because when I came back to Fort Worth, I was sort of a local celebrity. And, you know, I got invited to go out and speak to the Lions Club and the Rotary Club and things like that. And I was asked to come out and talk about the war on the local TV station. And I was on a little noon talk show. There was a woman named Bobby Wygant. The station was WBAP, Channel 5, which was owned by the Star-Telegram. And after I was on this show, they offered me a job. And it was $20 a week more than I made at the paper. And so I took it. And that's how I got into TV. I always laugh and say, you know, I'm one of the first print reporters that got in it for the money. But I needed the money. I didn't have any money. And so that seemed like a big deal to me. That took me to $155 a week. I was making $135 at the paper.